Efficient conservation and effective priorities. Modern conservation has many problems in its prioritization process, one of these being failure to account for the ever-present chance of failure. These events could be a loss of support or interest in the current conservation project. Despite this, conservation projects generally fail to account for failure. The reason for this is many find it difficult to integrate the chance of failure into plans. In terms of data, the people who make conservation prioritization are often operating without a sufficient amount of data, but despite this, they assign mathematic values to certain areas in need of conservation such as high to low or 1 to 7. These scores do not accurately portray how one environment is better to protect than another and are essentially meaningless. Conservation runs into the issue of some land being more valuable and more expensive to acquire. This can be due to a variety of factors, but the cost of the land makes it more difficult to preserve and thus lower on the priority list. Focus is instead put on public land, which is easier to acquire and far more expansive. Conservation itself is also not a simple process. The problems plaguing conservation vary greatly and there is no simple solution to many of them. Furthermore, resources are scarce and trying to solve a problem that is not fully defined can lead to wasteful use of resources. Setting clear and attainable goals is an important step in conservation planning. Charts such as the one displayed may seem like an effective and clear way to prioritize areas of interest, but it suffers from many unknowns such as how the chart was created in the first place. Without transparency on the creation process of the chart, it is unknown how accurate the chart is. Because of this, these charts are left without constructive criticism or critique and are subject to many of the creator's biases, beliefs, and judgment. All these problems manifest through incorrect prioritizations that favor economic efficiency over the prevention of extinctions. Cheap land that is easy to acquire. Scenery given priority over areas with endangered species. And flawed prioritization processes that give conservation projects a false credibility. The goal of this project is to examine biodiverse areas and protected lands to discern if modern conservation is effective in protecting biodiverse areas. By examining this data in ArcGIS, it is possible to see where prioritization should be given. This ArcGIS raster model takes data, reclassifies it, and calculates it into a priority map that will be used to see the effectiveness of current conservations. The map shows that the southeast portion of the United States is the most biodiverse area in the country. States such as Alabama, Mississippi, and Georgia are host to a large amount of endangered species and should be given conservation priority. Comparing these two maps shows that despite the biodiversity present in the southeast United States, it is not the focus of conservation or protection. Instead, most protected lands are in the western United States despite its relative scarcity and biodiversity. The reason for the lack of focus in the southeast becomes more apparent as public land is far easier to acquire and protect than private land. Furthermore, many conservations are prioritized to maintain scenery rather than to protect species. Modern conservation places prioritization in incorrect areas. This shows a flawed identification process that requires a shift of priorities from economic efficiency to the preservation of species. Strategies that place reduction in operating costs over the well-being of endangered species should be avoided in the future. Bibliographies. Data used in ArcGIS.